Greetings and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to give you some hints and tips to help you in removing those big and sometimes very expensive pieces of plastic on the front of your car. They're called bumper covers, but they really cover a lot more than just the bumper. Replacing your old foggy headlights with new ones is an easy task with the bumper cover out of the way. And if you have to work on your radiator and the air conditioning condenser, the bumper cover has to come off before you can do anything else. Once the car's bumper cover is out of the way, you'll find out that it usually takes only a few more minutes to remove the fenders as well. And this gives you easy access to a huge number of your car's mechanical components. Changing a bumper cover is usually a simple operation requiring only a few inexpensive tools, but there are potentially some stumbling blocks that we're going to show you here and you won't find on most other tutorials. Our example for this project is a 2007 Jeep Compass, but the procedures are very similar for most other modern cars. The screwdrivers and sockets used in this operation are probably already in your toolbox, and the Torx driver and panel tool can be purchased inexpensively from Harbor Freight or off of Amazon. If you're interested in a review of the Torx driver and panel tool sets that I'm using, please see my previous video on power window repair. We're going to start taking off this bumper cover by removing the 8 7mm hex head screws that attach the bumper cover to that light gray piece of plastic, which is a dust shield for the bottom of the engine. Now don't be surprised if you have Torx fasteners, probably T20, in these locations, because either of them can be used according to the Jeep parts manual. Whatever type of fasteners you have, just take all 8 of them out and set them aside. Next we're going to take off the 6 T20 Torx screws, now that's 3 per side, that attach the rear of the bumper cover to the dust shield that lines the inside of the wheel well. These will often be missing entirely because the nylon clips that they screw into fall out very easily from the dust shield. They aren't a very critical item. You don't want to lose too many of them or you'll get rattling, but it's perfectly okay to replace these with some small zip ties if that's all you have available. The screws and the clips they screw into, though, are cheap and easy to replace. On this car that I'm working on, some of these Torx screws felt like they were glued in place, and I had to cheat a little bit and use my little mini ratchet with the Torx driver to break them loose. Still easy enough to get out. Next up are the T20 Torx screws that go across the top of the bumper cover between the headlights. And again, these could be Torx screws or they might be hex head screws. I've found both kinds on these cars, and some cars I've even found them all mixed up. And Jeep doesn't seem to care. Either of those types of screws will do the job. Now here is where things can start to get a little tricky. The next 2 fasteners that we're going to take out on each side are a 10mm hex head screw and then followed by a hidden clip. Now I've shown both of those fasteners outside the car. Those are actually where they would be invisible to you behind the fender and the bumper cover. The hex head screw is what actually holds the back end of this bumper cover to the car. And so it's a pretty critical fastener, and you want to make sure that when you put it back together that it's nice and tight. We'll take out that 10mm bolt next. by pushing the dust cover aside and then using our socket and socket driver. Once you're done with that bolt, go to the other side of the car and do the same bolt on the other side. It's at this point when a lot of people doing this job get it wrong. Once that bolt is out, they don't know that there's also a clip that's hidden holding the back end of the bumper cover in place. And so unknowingly, they just grab the back end of the bumper cover and give it a strong tug. And in fact, they will probably get it loose because they're going to break that clip or the portion of the bumper cover that it attaches to. Here's where that nifty low-cost set of panel tools that I purchased comes in. It has the perfect tool, indicated by the yellow arrow, for reaching in and getting that clip out. Here is that tool in use, and also the clip that I'm removing. Really difficult to video this and try to do it at the same time. Fortunately, my neighbor, who is a mechanic, happened by, and she's going to be prying that out while I try to capture it on video. Now, the problem is the video goes by so quick because she reaches in, taps it a couple of times, and it pops out, and it happens so quick that I didn't really get much to show you. So I wanted you to see this so you can visualize what it looks like from inside the fender well. The blurry object at the bottom right is the wheel well dust cover that I'm pulling down out of the way so that I can get the camera in there. And the dark area in the background behind the tool is the rear half of the bumper cover that we're trying to loosen. And now here is the brief video, such as it is, of pulling that clip out. If you should happen to break that clip, don't despair. They're not expensive. And in fact, you can even get aftermarket replacement sets that will cover almost all the clips on the entire vehicle, along with one of the removal tools available from Amazon at low cost. The last two items of hardware to remove are the upper 10mm hex head screws that sit just outboard of the two headlights. Now, I should mention at this point that these two screws, along with the other two 10mm screws that were down at the back end of the bumper cover and the wheel wells, really do support most of the weight of the bumper cover and are the most important screws of the entire assembly. You don't want to have any of these screws missing or loose, or the bumper cover is liable to rattle. So once these last two screws are out of the way, the bumper cover is almost ready to remove. At this point, it's very useful to have a second set of hands, so my mechanic friend Piper is going to hold one end of the bumper cover while we work it away from the car. Now, we're only going to slip it out about 6 inches, and then she's going to support it for me while I complete the next two steps. The power connector for the turn signal is retained by a red clip that I'm popping open here, followed by removal of the connector itself. Now, I should mention that both of those operations, the clip and the connector, should have just come open with a little hand pressure, but these were really solidly stuck in place. For the fog lamps, you can just turn the lamp assembly 90 degrees, as Piper is doing here, and just let it dangle. It's always very useful to have an extra set of hands when you're trying to carry big painted components around, and so I was happy when my wife happened by at this point to help Piper put the bumper cover down while I finished recording. Now that the bumper cover is out of the way, I'm going to replace the two headlight assemblies with brand new low-cost components that I purchased for under $100. At the same time, I'm also going to replace the two fog lamps with a couple of LED assemblies that I purchased off eBay, also at very low cost. All of that will be described in a subsequent video. As for the reassembly of the bumper cover, it is literally the reverse of the disassembly, but keep in mind a couple of points. Whenever you install something that big with that many fasteners, you should always follow a simple rule, and that is to never tighten any of the fasteners until you have all of them installed. If you happen to be installing a new aftermarket bumper cover, you may find that it doesn't fit very well at first, and that is because these large pieces of plastic tend to warp or shrink after they come through the molding process. In such a case, I recommend that you install the top two 10mm screws, the ones just outboard of the headlights, first. Once those are in place, have an assistant push the bumper cover back, and it may take some force. You might have to lean into it pretty hard to get the rear bottom 10mm screws to align. Those are the ones down on the wheel well. Once you have all four of those screws in, the rest of them should go in much more easily. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you found it useful. As always, thanks for watching, and please hit like and subscribe to the channel. Your continued support will help me grow the channel and improve the quality of the content.